Hello and welcome to my first tutorial. This first tutorial will be on how to add an effect called tilt shift to videos. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what tilt shift is, I will show you quickly in Photoshop. Photoshop has a built-in tilt shift effect. Most people use it to make cities, time lapses, villages, bird's eye views all look like miniature models. It's quite a nice effect and it's one that I'm very fond of myself. But basically it just blurs the foreground and the background and leaves you with quite a nice effect. I'm just going to do it up to the horizon. Well, the horizon's here, but just under the traveller, and then just play around with the blur, the light bokeh, which is something I love. So you get something quite nice. And then of course you can have distortion as well, which is useful sometimes. And then I'll just render this now, and you can see the effect. It's quite nice, but as you can imagine, in motion it could be even nicer. So I'll close this down now. Don't want to save it. Nope. And our first method for adding tilt shift will be in Sony Vegas, and our second method will be in After Effects. So let's begin with the Sony Vegas version. What I've got here is a time-lapsed video, basically a recording from Destiny, which I've then sped up by holding Control and dragging the video until it's faster. That's the fastest it'll go, and I quite like this because of the way the clouds move in the background. It's got quite a nice effect. But as this is a tilt shift video and not a time-lapse video, let's get on with the tilt shifting. What you want to do is duplicate the track so that you then have two versions of it. And I had the track prepared, but it didn't decide to use it. And the first thing you want to do is, using the top track, not the bottom one, the top one, you want to go to Effects, which is this little tab icon here, and then go to Sony Defocus. Okay. And just play around with the blur until you get an effect that you like. So let's have a look. I'm going to use heptagon for the bokeh because I like the shape of it, which is things like this and these in the background here that you can see. You won't actually see these in the final version, which is a shame because I quite like them. But yep, just play around with the bloom, which will add bokeh to your video. The orientation will turn the bokeh. I'm not sure why that's important, why it's a feature that is desperately needed, but I'm going to go for about there. Okay, with the defocus set up, you next want to open this icon here and select mask. Make sure the mask checkbox is checked and you don't have position selected, you have mask selected, because that gives you a whole different set of options. Now what you want to do is get the rectangle tool on the side here and just drag it across the area that you want not to be blurred, like so. As you can see in the viewfinder here, it's actually made that area blurred. So to change that, we want to change the mode from positive to negative. And it's a bit sharp the way it goes from blurred to not blurred, because if you remember the effect that I showed you earlier on Photoshop, it was a lot smoother. So the way that we've changed this is to go to feather type and outwards, and then just play with the feather. Turn the feather up until you get something nice. Unfortunately, like you can in Photoshop, where you just drag it down and you have a different feather distance on the horizon than you do on the foreground, you can't do that. I'm sure there's a way, like maybe if we make two masks, that would probably work actually. So if you want to be more precise, try making two masks with different feather distances. Literally just thought of that now. So yeah, just set that up and find something that looks nice in your viewfinder, something that you're pleased with. And then once you're happy with that, Just close that. And now, as you can see here, it's time-lapsed and it's got the blur. So I'm now going to show you this rendered video. So I'll cut to the rendered video and then we'll begin on the second method using After Effects. Okay, now for the second method. A few things to note. Firstly, After Effects is not a cheap product. I am a student, so I get it quite cheap. It's also up to you whether you want to use Sony Vegas or After Effects for this effect, but After Effects gives a nicer effect. Just because the camera lens blur on here is a lot better than the Sony defocus on Sony Vegas. On top of this, After Effects is only really meant to be used for rendering small snippets of video with an effect added. If you're going to do a full 20-minute video, you're going to just wreck your computer trying to render it. You're going to be sat waiting for ages. When I rendered the video for this, it took me it was a minute long, and it took me something like 7-10 minutes to render. So as you can imagine, 20 minutes of video would take almost all day to render, so you want to be very careful about that. So let's begin, shall we? Firstly, I've got my footage loaded up, I've got it sped up. The way that you do this, if I just open this, because not many people know, is you right click on it and you go to time and then enable time remapping, and it gives you these little keyframes. The first keyframe is the start of your video, and the last keyframe is the end of the video. If you drag the last keyframe in, you're going to make it quicker. If you drag it out, you're going to make it slower. I've dragged this in and then clipped the rest of the video down to that size, and that's how I sped it up. If we just go back to composition 1. Now what we need to do is create a new solid. And we want this to be a black solid, and we obviously don't want it that long, so we'll just drag that back down to there. Okay, and we want to add an effect to this. We want to generate a light sweep, and what we're doing with this is we're creating the mask that we're going to use, like we did in Sony Vegas, to mask out the area which we don't want to be blurred. Now change the angle to 90 degrees, which will make it completely horizontal, which is exactly what we need. And if you need to reposition it after the red icon has disappeared, click this icon here and it'll bring up this like crosshair type thing, and just click where you want the center of it to be, and that'll bring back the red icon as well, so you can tweak it. Now make sure the sweep intensity is at least 100, just so that you definitely have that solid 100% white center to your mask, because that section will not be blurred at all. We want to make this wider, just for the effect that I'm trying to get, just for my specific mask. Everybody else, you're all going to have different masks that you'll need for different purposes, but I'm just going to set mine up. I'm going to change it to screen so that I can see the white area over my video, so I know where it won't be blurred. I'm just going to play around with the settings. I want the sweep intensity to be about 190, just because that's the effect that I want to get. We'll make it slightly wider, and that should cover the area which I intend to keep unblurred. Okay, I'm going to switch it back to normal and move it underneath the content. And now what we need to do is make it a composition. To do this, we want to press Ctrl, Shift and C. And we want to make sure it's checked, move all attributes into the new composition. I can explain why we need to do this. if we go into here, you can see that there's an FX box here. When we use this layer as a mask, the FX is ignored, so the white area doesn't exist. But if we make it a composition, the FX icon is gone. So you know that it's going to rasterize it. Well, it's basically rasterized, so that the gradient is existent. It's hard to explain, but basically, when we try and mask it, it'll pick up the white now, but otherwise it wouldn't have picked up the white area. It would have just picked up the black because the white was an effect. Okay, now with your content selected, go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and Camera Lens Blur. I'm going to use Heptagon again because that's what I used for the Sony Vegas one. Make sure Repeat Edge Pixels is on. That's very important that that's on, because as you can see, it removes the blur distortion from the edge. And now we want to choose the Black Solid 2 as our layer mask for the map. Obviously it's now blurring the area where we don't want it blurred, so we invert the blur map like so. And next, just play with the blur radius. It's that simple on After Effects. It's a lot easier than Sony Vegas, I find. A lot less that you need to do. I'm just going to zoom in so I can see things properly. I'm really pleased with how things are going at the moment. That there looks a bit solid. That's got a nice effect to it. Maybe a bit too much though. Let's go for 15. I think 15's a happy medium there. And that looks nice. And you can just play with the bokeh. You can play with if you just play around with stuff. Like the highlight threshold. We'll make it brighter. These areas are starting to come out more. You can change how round the heptagons are. 0%, but if you put the roundness up, it's just going to start becoming a circle anyway. Which actually isn't an option, so I guess if you want a circle, go for decagon and then roundness it, because you will have to do it as much. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's just give it a quick wipe through, see how things are looking. It's a little hard to tell. One thing that's better about Sony Vegas than After Effects is that when you want to preview on Sony Vegas, it will straight up preview, but on After Effects, if you want to preview, you've got to let it render each frame. You can do a RAM preview. Oh well, no, a RAM preview is what I'm talking about. If you click RAM preview, it will render each frame first. As you can see here, it's rendering frames, and then it'll play it out. I don't actually know how to cancel that, but I don't want it to do it anymore. But there we go. That's all it managed to render out of that. But even so, I'm happy with how that looks. I'm happy with how the blur is set up. So now I'm going to render it, and I'll show you the clip. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If there's anything you'd like to know, put it in the comments what you'd like a tutorial on, and if I don't know how to do it, I'll damn sure find out how to do it and then show you guys. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, share it with a friend. If you know somebody who needs to know this kind of thing, share it with them. And I'll see you in the next tutorial, which I believe will be how to make those awesome music video type things that you see on like dubstep videos and stuff with the pretty ladies in the background. Okay, so I'll see you next time.